Today is the 22nd day of Nisan, the 20th of April. And here in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, it is Isru Chag. It's the day after Pesach. In Chutz La'aretz, outside of the land of Israel, it is still the 8th day of Pesach. Maybe in Australia they're finished, not sure. And we are learning as usual. We're back to weekdays. And we're in the middle of mitzvahs, Akravas to Sefirat HaOmer, page 50. So we're all still feeling the effects of Sudas Mashiach, which is the equivalent nowadays to Simchas Torah.
Of what?
Simchas Torah,
Simchas Torah.
where you also feel the effects the day after, the last day of Sukkos. Okay. So last time we talked a lot about why this is going to be about speech, and the main thing I think I mentioned, I began with it, is that we're talking about the maturation of Malchus, of kingdom. And kingdom is always speech. So Passover was in order to liberate speech, liberate the kingdom. We also called it liberating Zah. It goes together. Zah and Malchus go together. But the main effect that we're looking for is to be able to speak, and speak what? After 49 days, God speaks the Ten Commandments. He begins to, the whole era of history in which God is now speaking to man. Okay? He's now commanding man, begins. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were searching for that, but they didn't come to that state yet. They were still searching for God. But now, with Moses, now we're going to start a different era, which is that God speaks to man. Not just speaks to him, he always spoke to him in a certain sense. But now he's going to speak to him, commanding him. And so the whole speech is going to change. Everything is going to change. It's going to be something different. So that's what we do.
Commanding to Moshe before Torah? There was communication.
No, there was commandment or at the beginning of commandment.
Yes.
But not the Ten Commandments.
No.
Not the revelation of God to the entire world saying, this is what I want.
Yes.
Until now, his revelation, you could still say, was in the state of, do if you want, you don't have to do if you don't want. It's up to you, it's voluntary. Because that was the whole attitude of the patriarchs.
Yeah,
by the way, what we celebrate on the 7th day of Pesach is that way of the patriarchs will return. Okay? That will return, and that's what we ve'nif Hashem et yado ala nahar, that God will pull His hand over the river, wave His hand over the river, and it will break into 7 parts. It will make it into 7 tributaries. 7. That is an image in the prophet for, so says the Alter Rebbe, for the 3 patriarchs and the 4 matriarchs. And that we're going to go back to that state of relationship with God, which is based on nullification and not on commandment, which is taking on the yoke of heaven. It's a different attitude. Now we never give up what we already gained. So we'll still have the yoke of heaven, but it won't be a requirement. You'll either want it or don't want it. It's not like it's now. Okay. In any case, so we're talking here about the maturation of speech. And now he says, "V'ina al yadei akravat korban HaOmer." So. I think we read this, but we'll read it again because it's important to get this through, because this is not the way we usually think about speech. You see where we are? 7? 7 lines down, 8 lines down. והנה על ידי הקרבת קורבן העומר נמשכו אלו ההי גבורות בבחינת פנימיות. So on the 2nd day of Pesach, when they brought the Omer offering, which is made from barley, so from the barley, which is se'orah, they receive, the Malchus, the kingdom receives, the power of speech receives the Hei Gvurot. The Hei Gvurot are the 5 judgments. What do Gvurot do? Gvurot are contractions. They contract something. They make it stop, as it were. They're like a stop. So they add the power of halting to the speech. Without that, there's no ability to speak. In other words, the baby just babbles. Blah, 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 blah. There's no ability to form the words. You need to have the ability to stop between syllables, between things, to create a language. Now, for instance, when you don't know a language, when you hear a foreign language, you don't hear those stops. You hear like everything is one continuous long word. That's the way you hear a foreign language in the beginning, until you recognize the hey gvurot, until you begin to recognize what causes you to stop. Now, there's another explanation to it, which we'll see it later, which is to even form the syllables, you need to be able to stop. Because we're holding the air coming out of our windpipe. V'inei, ואחר כך ניתן לנו מצוות ספירת העומר לומר היום יום אחד לעומר עד מ"ט ימים שעל ידי זה נמשכו בחינת המקיפים. So then we have 49 days of saying today is the first day of the Omer, today is the second day, all the way to today is the 49th day of the Omer. And this pulls down, he says, the makifim. What is this talking about? He's talking about the makifim of kingdom. It needs makifim. It needs some kind of surrounding light to nourish it. And what's that doing? Ki mehevel hadibur nasa or makif kayadua. This is a very important statement. He says, from speech are created surrounding lights. Hevel hadibur. What's the hevel hadibur? Hevel hadibur is the vapor that comes out of the mouth when a person is speaking. That creates makifim. What is this about? It's about Ak. In Ak, his hevel, the hevel that came out of ozen, chotem peh, it's not just from the mouth. It's from the ear, the nose, and the mouth came the makifim. That's how he describes it in Eitz Chaim. That when Ak first emanates reality, he does it through these three vessels, these three instruments that he has, and that creates makifim. Makifim hit one another, and that creates vessels. That's the basic idea. That's like creating the beginning of a world. Here we're talking about the world of speech, the world of ability to communicate. And I don't want to get into that image because it's a Kabbalistic image that we either will or won't unravel through what we're learning here. And the general kavana, the general intent we need to have in mind when counting the Omer. Today is 7 days that are 1 week. That's today. So when we say that, our intent should be that I am creating, I'm nourishing, I'm maturing my za, my emotional attributes, and the feminine counterpart, which here means the ability to speak Torah. That's what I'm doing. And in 49 days, we slowly get to where we were on the first day, the first evening of Pesach. On the first evening of Pesach, we spoke the Haggadah. We were able to speak divine words, but they were, let's say, they were like a first attempt. And the first attempt was very, very powerful. It came out, but it was due to the strength of the evening, the moment, the greatness of that. You can't live like that. You can't be in a seder all night, your whole life. It doesn't work. You can't have people around you all the time. It's just not going to work. You have to have a normal life. So this we do slowly over 49 days, reaching the same place that we were then, at the beginning of Pesach, that we were able to speak these words, and they were not because they were rehearsed or because we just read out of a Haggadah. That helps. But in the end, we spoke lesaper b'yitziat Mitzrayim. We tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt, and that's chinuch. It's giving it to our children, to those after us. That all comes from the power of speech. So we could do it. Utzrach lechach לשעה בלבד, לפי שהיו קליפות יונקים מאי חסדים ואי גבורות. שבדעת שזה סוד מתבוססת בדמייך. ואחר כך על ידי הספירה נבלעים הדמים בפנימיותו. So now he says, what gave us this ability? What gave us this ability to do it then? That we had two types of blood. It's like an image here. There were two types of blood on the eve of Pesach. One was the blood of the circumcision, because everybody's circumcised before the Pesach, and they performed that mitzvah. What? Okay. And apart from the circumcision, we had the blood of the Paschal lamb. So we had those two merits in our name. So those two merits, they give us the ability. But you can't do that all the time. You can only circumcise once. And the Paschal lamb is only one time a year. So how are you going to continue it the rest of the year? So you can't do it based on those two merits. You need something else. So slowly, so he says that in the same way that these makifim from our words are now going to nourish and build Zayin Nukva, so also these two types of blood, on the merit of these two types of blood, they're also integrated slowly over these 49 days. V'zesod aleph de ekye im adam, shenasa adam. And this is the secret, he says, of the letter Aleph that comes from Ekye. Ekye is the name of the redemption. Ekye asher Ekye. Moses asked, "What should I call you? What's your name?" If they ask me, "What's your name?" Meaning, where were you for? Says the Rebbe, where were you for 210 years? He says Ekye. That's the name. And without getting into it now, you take the Aleph from Ekye and you add it to Dam, and you get Adam. Then you get man. It's a new type of man. Which man are we talking about? The Zah. This is the man called Zah, Zeir Anpin, the small countenance. And again, it's a different type of man. The man before was able to speak. He had speech. He had everything. But he wasn't able to speak words of Torah. That was something else. This requires a new mindset. And to have this new mindset, you have to work on it. And that's what we do during the Sefirat. ולכן, מן שביעי של פסח עד שבועות מ"ד ימים. Says there's another hint here. That from the 7th day of Pesach, today is the 8th day already, but from yesterday until Shavuos, there's 44 days. Okay? Because we have 50 minus 6. So there's 44. So 44 days, 44 is the gematria of Dam. It's also the gematria of blood. So he says, even though we don't have the blood of the Paschal lamb anymore, we don't have the blood of circumcision, we have, as a hint, that what we're doing is we're integrating this blood during these 44 days. Ki dam ne'echal v'na'asa chala. Because there's a interesting thing that in the ancient world, this is the way they saw it, that the milk that the mother gives to her young, to her baby, it comes from blood. It's made from blood. The blood, in some way, is transformed into milk. Exactly what that is, and everything. What we're saying is that basically something that was gvura becomes something that's chesed. Something that was red is always the left side, it's always might, it's always gvura, became something that's white, which is on the right side, which is the milk. וכמבואר בפרטות סדר כניסת ה' חסדים וה' גבורות הנ"ל בזון, and all this is explained in detail, and he's not going to get into it. סדר כניסת המוחין שם בפרי עץ חיים, עד שבשבועות נגמרו כניסתם, אז מקריבים שתי הלחם להיות אומנת היונק בלחמה של תורה. So it's all given in detail in Pri Etz Chaim, but the point is in the end that the child is suckled until he can begin to speak. And what does he do on Shavuos? He eats from the grain. Which grain? This time from wheat. And wheat, we said, is equal to 22, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
He said the other room. Do you know where they keep them?